Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Got question Chase, has got the facts, talking NFL numbers, he's got your back. A little chart trend ball, man, he's got it like that. Chasing data by do champions. Chasing data applies to everyone. Chasing data, yeah, we're live today. Chasing data for always. Chasing data by do champions.
Well, what's up, and welcome to another off-season episode of Chasing Data. Tonight we're going to go straight into all 16 AFC teams and discuss what their needs are for each team. Top 3 needs after free agency, where they stand, what do they still need. A lot of teams have addressed the majority of their needs, but a lot of teams still have a ton of issues and a ton of holes on their roster as we head into the draft. We're just a month away from the draft, so we are really getting ramped up for what the draft has to offer for a multitude of these teams and who's going to make a big splash move. Last year, we got surprised by the Browns and the Jags making that first-round trade that no one really expected, to be honest, not that trade. And that has had ramifications that has now entered into 2026 and going forward. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and go straight to the first team. We are going to start with the New England Patriots. So hopefully everyone can see this on my screen here. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Okay. All right. So starting with the Patriots, the yellow. Okay. So if you're unfamiliar with what we're looking at here with the depth chart, the yellowish orange, whatever color you want to make that, those are the free agency signings that they've made this year. You see on the offensive side of the ball, they go out and get arguably a wide receiver one, still don't really have a dominant wide receiver one. They get Romeo Doubs, who will probably play well in this offense. They did release Stephon Diggs. And on that offensive line, they get Elijah Vera Tucker. They moved Jared Wilson to center. And they stole a fullback from the Buffalo Bills in Reggie Gilliam. On the defensive side of the ball, they get an edge rusher in Draymond Jones from Baltimore. Kevin Byard, turnover machine defense in Chicago. They get a few more depth players, KJ Britt, Kendall Vildor from Tampa Bay, et cetera, et cetera. But when I look at this offense, where I still see holes is the first one to me is wide receiver. They still need a wide receiver one. You could argue that wide receiver one or edge are the two roster spots that need to be filled going into free agency. They signed Romeo Doubs, but still without a true wide receiver one for May and his deep ball. But they're still in the market for A.J. Brown. What will happen with that? I'm curious to see. But on the other side of that, on the defensive side, you have the edge that is still, yes, they go get Draymond Jones, but that doesn't prevent them from going even farther and doubling down in the draft, in my opinion. They were still bottom 20. They were at 24th best pass rush per PFF last year. So, I mean, even with Milton Williams, Christian Barmore, Harold Landry, they still have an issue with that front four. They were 26th in sacks with 35. Yes, Draymond Jones was a solid addition, but they still need more going into the draft. And then when you go back to the offense, the third biggest need for the Patriots is their offensive tackle. They need their heir to Morgan Moses. Morgan Moses is getting up there in age at this point. Will Campbell will still stay at left tackle, even though he had a terrible playoff run last year. Jared Wilson moves to center. I mean, they bring in AVT from the New York Jets, but they still need to add depth to that right tackle and the future of that right tackle position. So that is the New England Patriots. Simple enough. So now we will go to the next team. One moment while I pull them up. That would be the Buffalo Bills. Let me close some of these out as I go. All right, so Buffalo Bills, second team. We're going to go division by division as we go through this. Buffalo Bills, they traded for DJ Moore. They signed Kyle Allen. They signed Bradley Chubb from the Miami Dolphins. They get another Chicago Bear and bounced around last year. And CJ Gardner-Johnson. They get Geno Stone from the Bengals, and they get D. Alford from Atlanta. Not many additions for this team in the offseason. But their biggest need, when I look at what they've done so far in the offseason, is first and foremost safety. This and linebacker group both ranked 22nd per PFF. They have Cole Bishop. I mean, I don't. If you're telling me, do I trust C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Geno Stone? No, I do not. I do not. I look for them to maybe go safety early on in the draft and see what they can do to shore up that defense. We know the defense. The story has been told 100 times about how they give up a ton of points in all their playoff losses. To continue on that defensive side of the ball, I mean, I think we trust what Josh Allen can do regardless of what offensive weapons he does or does not have. But linebacker is the second area that I'm looking at on this team as still being a hole that needs to be filled. Terrell Bernard is the only starters in that's returning this year. That's notable. I should say. They were third worst in EPA allowed per rush last season, a positive 0.05 per, and they give up the second most explosive runs last season with 65. So 65 is not ideal, to say the least. When you look even more at this team, when you go back to the offensive side of the ball, you could argue that they still could go wide receiver and get some more help in the wide receiver room. But I think they need to go and shore up that guard position. Yes, they have Alec Anderson starting here at left guard, but they need to shore it up. They lost David Edwards. Osiris Torrance has had a sub 60 PFF grade every year. So they need to shore up that guard position in Buffalo. Next team that we have staying in the AFC East. There we go. The one and only New York Jets. So these are the bottom feeders between the Jets and the Dolphins. The Jets, they went out and added Dylan Parham from the Raiders. Geno Smith, they traded for from the Raiders as well. It's always a good sign whenever you get two Raiders on your team. You know, I mean, it really bodes well for what you have going on in your locker room. So that was their two offensive additions. Obviously, they keep Breece Hall. They traded for Tavondre Sweat, trade away Jermaine Johnson. Also signed David Onyemata, Kingsley Enagbare, who had some solid seasons in Green Bay. They reunite Demario Davis with Aaron Glenn in this defense. Joseph Osai, who was the lead pressure getter in Cincinnati last year. I think he had around 45. Nashawn Wright, who had a breakout season, had almost 1,000 snaps last year after totaling around just 300 in his first 3 seasons. Dane Belton they get from the Giants, and Mika Fitzpatrick, who they trade for another leader on that defense, trying to revamp what they have going on. But when I look at this team, the first thing that obviously they need a quarterback, but they have Geno Smith to bridge the gap. But as of right now, they need another wide receiver. I mean, you could bring a quarterback in, but you're not getting Fernando Mendoza. So you're bringing in Ty Simpson to a wide receiver room that's not the best. And that's why I think they should use potentially their first pick. They have Garrett Wilson and friends. Yes, they have A.D. Mitchell. They have Arian Smith. These players kind of showed up at times, but are they dependent on what you want to build around going forward? Going back to that quarterback room, Geno, like I said, is potentially fine for a bridge quarterback, but you don't want to force it with a dumb pick early in the draft. They have, 14, 16, 16-ish, whatever Indy's pick is in the first round, along with their own first. They're obviously not taking Ty Simpson with that first round pick, potentially for the second one. But I mean, we know how quarterbacks go. We know the likes of Dan Orlovsky is trying to change the narrative about what these quarterbacks can do in the NFL. So wide receiver, quarterback are their two top needs, both on the offense. And then when you go to the defense, they still need edge help. They do have Will McDonald. Like I said, they signed Enagbare, they signed Joseph Osai, but that doesn't preclude them from taking an edge, even if it's with that first round pick. Honestly, they were 31st in sacks last year with 26 in the entire 2025 season. So they had a lot a lot of room for improvement based on what they did in 2025. That's the Jets. Going to the last team of the AFC. Not the last team of the AFC East, the last team of that division, I should say. Bring it up. There we go. We have the Miami Dolphins. So when you look at the Miami Dolphins, they have a ton of orange, yellow here. Our Devon A. Chan says, are you a Chargers, Viking, or Jags fan? I'm a Ravens fan. Switch the shirts up every week, and tonight we were doing AFC, so I just randomly chose the Chargers. Appreciate you stopping by the way. So with the Dolphins, they have made a ton of signings and a lot of moves that truly confuse me. They signed Tutu Atwell. They signed Jalen Tolbert, Jamari Sawyer from the Chargers. They signed Malik Willis, who they gave a reasonable amount of money to. And that's where the confusion lies. Did Malik Willis know that he was getting into this environment to come in and your wide receiver one be Tutu Atwell or Jalen Herbert or Malik Washington? I mean, you could make your pick, and it doesn't bode well. Did he know that they were trading Jalen Waddle? I mean, I would think that he would want to go to a situation, especially getting a short contract, where he would want to have the opportunity to showcase his skill set and get a bigger payday in the next few years. Neither here nor there, but interesting to say the least. On the defensive side of the ball, they add Josh Uche from the Eagles, Ojabo from the Ravens, Baker from Tennessee, Lonnie Johnson from Las Vegas. I mean, none of these names are great names. They added way too many special teamers, in my opinion, but Jeff Hafley and friends, I guess, can choose what they want to do. With the needs that they have on this team, the first one is wide receiver, obviously, being that they got rid of Jalen Waddle for a first-round pick. Let's see. Let me find where I had that information. I don't know where it's at. Anyways, Jalen Waddle, like I said, traded away to the Denver Broncos, so they need a wide receiver. We just talked about why their wide receiver room is terrible, to say the least. Where is that at? I thought I had it where their wide receivers, nobody's had over like 500 yards in a season. I mean, it's just been terrible all around. So that's easily their number one need for 2026. When you look at the defensive side of the ball, we know the defense was one of the worst defenses in the NFL. They started like the first third of the season having the worst EPA allowed per pass. They were just getting ate up by any and every quarterback. It started with Daniel Jones and just precipitated from there. Minkah Fitzpatrick, Rasul Douglas are both gone. They were 8th worst versus the pass according to EPA allowed. I mean, they improved towards the end of the season, but I mean, this room is completely redone. They have a whole new defensive scheme going on in Miami. And then when you look at the front four, they do have Chop Robinson. Jalen Phillips is gone last year, who was traded to the Eagles. Bradley Chubb was released. They were last in PFF pass rush grade last year and 26th in quarterback pressure rate. And now they've lost Bradley Chubb. So you put all that together, and I mean, they have holes almost anywhere and everywhere. I mean, what positions do you feel comfortable about? Parts of the offensive line, quarterback, running back. Outside of that, I think you take potentially best player available for this team. So that is the AFC East. So as we continue, next team, we move to the AFC South. And let's pick the team that won the AFC South to begin with, the Houston Texans. So when you look at the Houston Texans and what are their biggest needs? Here we are again, 3rd year in a row, and the biggest need is still offensive line based. I would say they've improved. They've signed Wyatt Teller. They've signed Braden Smith, who were 2 solid additions. They traded away Titus Howard to the Browns, but I mean, they've added some, but it still doesn't preclude them from continuing to add in the draft as we move forward. We know how much Stroud was pressured. It was less than what we thought it would be going into 2025. That makeshift offensive line that they put together last season held its own, I would say. Mainly left guard. I mean, they did get Wyatt Teller, but center, they can improve for sure, and they definitely need to add some depths. Charger ceiling 7-10. I agree. I mean, maybe 10-7 at best. Their offensive line, we're going to get to in a moment. Second need for the Houston Texans would easily be linebacker, a pass coverage linebacker to be specific. Yes, they have Aziz Al-Shahir and Henry To'oTo'o, but they could improve as far as pass coverage linebackers go. And then I think they could add in the defense we know is amazing. Defensive interior potentially, a run stuffer specifically. Ricardo, appreciate the follow, but you are pretty close with their ceiling. I mean, 10-7 is probably where they're going to end up. But that's Houston Texans. They won the division. Well, they didn't win the division, but they look to win the division in 2026 after winning it in 2024. So next team in the AFC South, the team that did win the division, the Jacksonville Jaguars. They did not make any real outside signings outside of Chris Rodriguez. That is the one and only signing that they've made outside of their current makeup of a team, but they decided to run it back with what they have and try again. They did lose a few players, the likes of Travis Etienne, Achan, as he wants to say, have it said. With the Jags, though, what their three biggest needs are. First off, defensive line. Yes, they have Josh Hines Allen, but outside of him, no one had 200-plus pass rush snaps and a 65 or higher grade. Travon Walker took a step back last year. I still think they could add with that defensive front four. What was I about to? Oh, yeah. So, linebacker, second biggest need for this team. They lose Devin Lloyd. They still have Oluokun in there, who is a tackling machine. So they need that linebacker to help fill the hole made by Devin Lloyd leaving this roster. And then when you look at the offensive side of the ball, the interior offensive line is the third biggest need for the Jags, in my opinion. They were bottom half in the league in quarterback pressure rate allowed and sacks taken. So they could improve there to keep Trevor Lawrence upright. He gets a little frisky whenever he has to escape the pocket. He does run well, but they could improve that interior offensive line. So, next team, keeping with the AFC South, the Indianapolis Colts. You see that they added Nick Westbrook-Akina from the Miami Dolphins, who had a good year 2 years ago with the Titans. Speaking of the Titans, they add Arden Key on that front four. Akeem Davis-Gaither from the Cardinals. No one else. Cam Taylor-Britt was a good addition that they made. They are trying to run it back, too. They did trade away Michael Pittman. But when I look at this team, the biggest need for me starts on the defense with the linebacker position. No one on this linebacker group has more than 250 career snaps outside of Akeem Davis-Gaither. They were 30th in PFF grade last year amongst all linebacker groups, and they have no first-round pick. So this is all going on the fact that they are starting with their second-rounder. Next biggest hole is safety. They let Nick Cross walk in free agency, who took up 1,100 snaps in that secondary. So they have to replace that. They do have Cam Bynum. They bring in Wanya Thomas. I mean, if you're bringing in a defensive player from the Dallas Cowboys, it probably doesn't bode well regardless of your system. And the third biggest need is wide receiver, because Alec Pierce is the only player that's returning that had 600 or more receiving yards in 2025. We'll see what they can do without Daniel Jones. I don't know. They're saying he may be back for the beginning of the season. Training camp potentially, I think I read. Last team in the AFC South, the Tennessee Titans. When you look at the Tennessee Titans, they went out and spent a lot of money, but did they make a lot of changes? You see a lot of orangish, yellow, brown, gold. Wan'Dale Robinson was a big name that they added on the offense. Potentially wide receiver one, even though he's not your typical wide receiver one. Austin Schlottman is the new center after they let Lloyd Cushenberry walk. Cordell Volson comes over after being out all of 2025. Daniel Bellinger and Kylan Granson are brought into that tight end room that needed some help. Mitch Trubisky's brought in to back up Cam Ward. Then on the defensive side of the ball, they traded for Jermaine Johnson. They get John Franklin Myers, which was a very underrated addition in my opinion. Solomon Thomas, Jordan Elliott, Muhammad Diabate from Cleveland, Alante Taylor, and Cordell Flott. They double dip with the cornerbacks. Josh Williams as well from the Kansas City Chiefs. So you put all that together, and this team could improve from where they were in 2025. The interior offensive line is still the biggest need for me. Schlottman is center, but he's about to be 31 years old, so he's not necessarily your center of the future. Right guard is Volson, who missed, like I said, all of last season, and they need some depth here and build for the future. We know how much Cam Ward was running for his life in 2025, leading to 56 sacks allowed for the season last year. Second biggest need for the Titans is edge. Yes, they have Jermaine Johnson. Yes, they have Jacob Martin. Yes, they have the second year Oladejo, second rounder. But all three of them had sub 65 grades as far as PFF goes. So I think, and that's where the big debate has come. Are they going to go wide receiver or edge with that first round pick? They will have options to choose from for sure. But that's why wide receiver is also a need for them. We want to see what Cam Ward can do. I think you want to see if he's your franchise quarterback going forward. We know last year was kind of a write-off for the Tennessee Titans and Cam Ward's development, but he did not get any help from his wide receiver group. Yes, they signed Wan'Dale Robinson, but they still could have had more. You're going to have the likes of Cornell Tate. I mean, could you trade back and get maybe Jordan Tyson, Malachi Lemon, maybe? I don't know. You have your pick of wide receivers. Last year, their leading receiver was Chigakonkwo with 560 yards, who is now gone. Io Manor was second with 515, and you have 423, 357, 350. This is absolutely terrible for a wide receiver group. So interesting to see what they do with that first round pick in Tennessee. Moving on to the AFC West, we start with the Denver Broncos. Denver Broncos didn't make many additions, and the fans were getting kind of worked up about it, but they did make a big splash move at the end of free agency, trading for Jalen Waddle, getting rid of that first-round pick and a few day 3 picks, round 3 and 4. So with that being done, they really didn't sign anyone else. Tyson Anderson from Cincinnati may not even see the field, honestly, for this team. Their biggest needs for the Broncos is still tight end. Evan Ingram did not play as well as we thought he would coming into this offense. Their tight ends last year were last in receiving yards out of all tight ends in the NFL. They had a tight end group where none of them had over a 60 PFF grade. Continuing along that line, we go to the defensive side of the ball. They drafted Jahdae Barron, but they still need someone to replace Riley Moss, who was 64th in PFF grades amongst DBs. He got picked on a lot because, I mean, they're just going to go away from PS2, and Riley Moss, we saw flag after flag after flag. Third biggest need is to replace the loss of John Franklin Myers, who went to the Tennessee Titans, who we just talked about. So they need to replenish that defensive interior for the Denver Broncos. Going to the second team in the AFC West, we have the Los Angeles Chargers. Los Angeles Chargers, like I said, I was going to speak about. They did sign the likes of Tyler Biadasz and Cole Strange for that offensive line. They do bring in Keaton Mitchell, who can't block anything, but is great in the pass game. Good runner as well. Charlie Kolar from Baltimore also joins the fold. Alec Ingold, fullback from Miami. Defensive outside addition that they made was Dalvin Tomlinson from Arizona. But when you look at this team, it's still the interior offensive line. I mean, the guard positions, honestly, they have Trevor Penning and Cole Strange as your two guards, which is not ideal. They allowed the second most sacks last year, 60. They basically lost their entire offensive line. They do have the two bookends with Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt, but that interior three, all gone. Both Cole Strange and Trevor Penning had a sub 55 PFF grade last year. So big need, obviously, to keep Justin Herbert upright. Second biggest need is edge. We know Khalil Mack is not getting any younger. Yes, he's still functional, but at some point, it's going to be it for him. They do have Tuipulotu, who had a great season. They were fourth in quarterback pressure rate, not bad, but now they also lost Odafe Owe. And like I said, Khalil Mack is a year older. The third biggest need for me, I don't know if a lot of people would agree, but it may be wide receiver. They could be better, I feel, at wide receiver. They have a solid group, but no real dominant players, honestly. They did lose Keenan Allen as well. Moving on in the AFC West, we now have the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City Chiefs. Biggest need on this team. We know that Patrick Mahomes may not be back for the beginning of the season. Thus, their trade for Justin Fields, which will be interesting to see what happens with that. But their biggest need was their two DBs who went to the Los Angeles Rams in Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson. Their top three now are Christian Fulton, Noel Williams, and Kader Kahu from Miami. They have 2 first-round picks, so I would assume that they're going to use one of them on a DB. I mean, this secondary is extremely depleted. Second biggest need, defensive line. Chris Jones has been in the league. This is, year 11 now? They need pressure help. They were 26 with 35 sacks. Only George Karlaftis and Chris Jones are back, who had 25-plus pressures last year. And then the third biggest need is wide receiver. I mean, we thought that Rashee Rice was going to take another step forward. Xavier Worthy has been not worth the first-round pick thus far. Outside of him, they have Tyquan Thornton, who they brought back, and no one had over 600 yards last year. So they did add Kenneth Walker, Kairos Tonga, who's a great addition to that run D, Aloy Gilman, who played well once he got in Baltimore last year. Next team in the AFC West, team that finished last and who have the number 1 overall pick, the Las Vegas Raiders. We know that the biggest need is obviously quarterback. They're going to fill that first pick with Fernando Mendoza. After that, you have wide receiver. They currently have Trey Tucker, Jalen Naylor as your wide receiver 1s and 2. Jalen Naylor is good. Trey Tucker is okay, but it obviously could be much better for the likes of Fernando Mendoza. He does have Ashton Jeanty in the backfield and Brock Bowers, who could arguably be tight end 1 in 2026. Still need to improve that wide receiver room. Second biggest need, DB. They retained Eric Stokes and traded for Teron Johnson, but they were her 10th worst pass defense last year. They did make a lot of moves, obviously bringing in the interior offensive line with Spencer Burford, and Tyler Linderbaum. They also added Connor Hayward at the fullback position, and on defense, they spent a lot of money as well, retaining Max Crosby after that debacle, bringing in Kwity Paye, get after the quarterback, and then they double dip with the linebacker position with Quay Walker and the Kobe Dean. Going to be interesting to see how those two play out together. But outside of that, they could add more to that interior offensive line. I don't think it precludes them. They're not drafting a center, but they need depth to help protect Fernando Mendoza. And the last division that we're going to discuss tonight, the AFC North. And with the team that won it somehow, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh Steelers, quarterback is the biggest need, I would say. I mean, even if Aaron Rodgers comes back, I guess, I don't know. He's the king of the behind the line of scrimmage passes, had the lowest ADOT in 2025. Second biggest need, they traded for Michael Pittman, so they got another wide receiver. I would say that's still their third biggest need, though, is they need more dynamic playmakers alongside DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman. Second biggest need is offensive tackle. Broderick Jones was not good last year. I think they could improve that for the time being. Defense is good as is. The offense is where all three needs lie as of right now. Second team in the AFC North, the Baltimore Ravens. Tumultuous offseason with the Max Crosby issues. Did not extend Lamar Jackson. Lose Tyler Linderbaum. I mean, lost a lot, honestly. So they obviously need a center. I mean, I don't know who's going to be the starting center. They could use depth here for sure. How do you feel about Mike Evans' fantasy value after 49ers picked him up? I mean, I think that the offense is going to be great, as always, in San Francisco. It's just a matter of his health. I mean, he could be taken, I would say, potentially 4th, 5th round in fantasy. He's probably wide receiver 1 right now in that offense. The only thing that scares me is the injuries and the fact that they spread the ball out so well. Second biggest need for Baltimore, wide receivers. Zay and Mark Andrews are the only ones on the roster who had more than 300 receiving yards in 2025. I mean, they've swung and missed so many times with the wide receiver position. And then when you look at edge, they did sign Trey Hendrickson, but he's a designated pass rusher. Mike Green did not pan out. So where do they go from here? Odafe Owe wasn't great while he was there. They were 28th in sacks with 30. They still need to add there. Last two teams. Cincinnati Bengals are next. And the Bengals. Let's see. Here we go. Cincinnati Bengals. The offense is back. Basically, the entire offense. The defense was greatly improved in the second half of the season, but they could use. Let me go back to who they added first. They added a run stuffer in Jonathan Allen from Minnesota. Boye Mafe, who didn't play a lot of snaps in Seattle. They also bring in Brian Cook, who was very underrated in KC. Biggest need for me, linebacker. They were last in PFF grades in 2025. They currently have Demetrius Knight and Barrett Carter, who are not two household names by any means in Cincinnati. Secondarily, they need that defensive interior to be improved. They did add Jonathan Allen. They lost Joseph Osai, and that was the most pressures on the team. And thirdly, DB. They lost Cam Taylor-Britt. The defense got better at the end of the season, but there's still a lot of room for improvement, and they finished 26 versus the pass, which was greatly skewed based on what happened at the beginning of the season. And when we get to the last team, one of the most tumultuous teams in the NFL, the Cleveland Browns. So with the Cleveland Browns, offensive line is still the biggest need. Yes, they bring in Zion Johnson, which is not great. Elgin Jenkins, somehow get him on a good deal. Titus Howard, not the most outstanding name. They re-signed Tevin Jenkins. DeJuan Jones is back. But offensive line, need a left tackle. Right tackle too, I guess. Secondarily, they need a wide receiver for whoever is going to be the quarterback. Shador, I assume, potentially even Deshaun Watson. I mean, it's going to be a quarterback battle as we go into the offseason. They have Jerry Jeudy, and he's the only one that had 400 or more yards last year. Isaiah Bond looked good at times last year, but towards the end of the year, Cedric Tillman had a good beginning to the year, but it just hasn't been good. They have Harold Fannin, who was great. They have Quinshon Judkins, who was great. Dylan Sampson showed some burst at times. But they definitely need a wide receiver. And they still need a quarterback. Shador, I mean, all these people who argue it back and forth, he was next to lowest in EPA per drop back. He runs for his life no matter what the pocket looks like. So they could still add to that quarterback room. So those are all the needs of the AFC. Thanks for everybody stopping by, and we'll be back next week to discuss the NFC needs, all 32 teams.